On April 16, 2026, Los Angeles Police Department officers arrested 21-year-old David Burke, a recording artist known professionally as d4vd. This timeline maps the central charge against him, the first-degree murder of 14-year-old Celeste Rivas Hernandez. Between the alleged date of the homicide and the execution of the arrest warrant, nearly 12 full months elapsed. That gap points to a severe initial forensic roadblock. Rivas Hernandez's remains were not discovered until months after her death, and they were found in an advanced state of decomposition. When soft tissue degrades over a period of months, medical examiners often lose the physical markers required to establish an immediate, conclusive cause of death, such as specific toxicology markers or structural trauma. To understand how the state mounts a capital murder charge without an immediate, obvious pathological cause of death, we have to deconstruct this one-year timeline. We need to look at exactly how prosecutors substituted degraded physical evidence with a highly structured deployment of digital forensics and procedural law. A lack of immediate forensic clarity does not stop a homicide prosecution. It simply forces investigators to spend months meticulously assembling a circumstantial matrix. The chronological starting node for this investigation is April 23, 2025. According to the prosecution, this is the date Rivas Hernandez entered a residence leased by Burke in the Hollywood Hills. Investigators state that after crossing that threshold, she was never heard from or seen alive again. Prior to that date, her family reported the 14-year-old middle school student missing from her home in Lake Elsinore, 70 miles southeast of Los Angeles. The timeline then jumps forward to the summer of 2025. By July and August, residents noticed a vehicle sitting stationary on Bluebird Avenue, another location within the Hollywood Hills. The vehicle gathered dust and accumulated multiple parking citations over several weeks without moving. Property records and registration data confirmed the abandoned vehicle was a 2023 Tesla Model Y, legally registered to David Burke. Between September 5th and September 8th, the vehicle was ticketed, towed to an impound lot, and ultimately searched by the LAPD after tow yard workers reported a distinct foul odor. Inside the front trunk, detectives found 2 separate cadaver bags containing the severely decomposed and dismembered remains of a teenage girl. This schematic visualizes the clinical forensic reality detectives faced. As the passage of time extends along the x-axis, the viability of traditional soft tissue pathology on the y-axis drops off an exponential cliff. Weeks of exposure sever the direct pathological link to the mechanism of death. Because the physical body could not immediately supply a cause of death, law enforcement had to pivot their strategy. They shifted their focus to digital forensics and calculated legal maneuvers. Through October 2025, the LAPD maintained a strict, non-committal public posture. They explicitly stated that Burke was not yet a formal suspect and declined to definitively classify the death as a homicide. This is standard operating procedure. When investigators encounter heavily degraded physical evidence, they must wait for exhaustive rulings from forensic pathologists before publicly naming targets. The timeline then advances to a critical procedural milestone on November 24, 2025. At this point, the Los Angeles County Department of Medical Examiner became the focal point of the prosecution's strategy. At the LAPD's request, the medical examiner placed a formal security hold on case number 2025-14252. This legal tool overrides the standard public release of coroner records. Once executed, it legally seals all autopsy details, including the cause of death, from the public. By sealing the findings, investigators gain a distinct tactical advantage. It prevents defense attorneys, or potential suspects, from seizing on the ambiguous physical evidence to craft an exculpatory narrative in the press. The hold functioned as an active procedural shield, locking down the narrative so detectives could conduct witness interviews without the risk of media contamination. Behind that shield, prosecutors deployed their primary legal maneuver in mid-November 2025. They convened a secret grand jury. Prosecutors did not convene a standard charging grand jury to seek an immediate indictment. Instead, they opted for an investigative grand jury. This panel acts as an intelligence-gathering apparatus, granting the district attorney the absolute power of the subpoena to compel sworn testimony. Armed with these subpoenas, prosecutors mapped out their targets. They focused heavily on Burke's inner circle, uncooperative associates, and individuals residing outside of California. The investigation quickly crossed state lines, with legal orders served to Burke's immediate family members residing in Texas. Those targets pushed back. Attorneys filed an appeal in a Texas court, attempting to block the subpoenas and avoid taking the stand. In response, prosecutors escalated their tactics. In Montana, authorities executed a material witness arrest, detaining an associate to physically compel his testimony in Los Angeles. In February 2026, the intense secrecy surrounding the proceedings was finally pierced by the paper trail from those Texas court appeals. Those public filings explicitly stated what the LAPD would not. David Burke was now the formal, legal target of a murder investigation. Over months of closed-door sessions, prosecutors used the threat of perjury to lock down testimony regarding digital communications, specific vehicle movements, and minute-by-minute timelines. By utilizing the grand jury, the prosecution bypassed their forensic dead end. They legally forced a web of uncooperative witnesses to construct the circumstantial evidence matrix they needed to proceed. That brings the master timeline to its terminus, April 16, 2026. Detectives from the LAPD's Robbery Homicide Division executed the arrest warrant at a residence in Hollywood. Days later, Burke appeared at the Hall of Justice in downtown Los Angeles, where his defense attorney entered a formal plea of not guilty. This split-screen visual connects the data gathered over the last year directly to the formal charges filed by the District Attorney's Major Crimes Division. The baseline charge is first-degree murder. However, prosecutors attached special circumstances. Under the California Penal Code, proving these specific conditions elevates a standard homicide to a potential capital offense, carrying a maximum sentence of life without parole or the death penalty. The first special circumstance is lying in wait. Prosecutors rely on the precise location data and digital timeline assembled by the grand jury to allege premeditation and concealment. The second is financial gain. The state alleges Burke committed the murder specifically to protect his lucrative recording career. Finally, they filed a third special circumstance, murdering a witness to a pending investigation, directly linking her death to allegations of continuous lewd acts committed against a minor. The 12-month gap represents a calculated period of legal assembly, where prosecutors leverage procedure to build a case that the lack of an immediate biological cause of death would otherwise have blocked. In high-stakes circumstantial homicides, strategic procedural patience and the aggressive use of the grand jury playbook are the ultimate tools required to secure a capital indictment.